All right, so let's get something straight. Yes, I'm a talking basketball. You are watching This Ball Does Not Lie, the show where the ball that doesn't lie to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to click subscribe. If you're watching it on Spotify, I'm sure there's like a way to do that on there too. Look for it. And if you're watching it somewhere else, then I don't know who put it there, but follow that page too. This isn't going to be like most other sports shows, in case you can't tell. If you want to go see someone put on a suit and give you opinions on, something, then you can find that anywhere. But that's not what this is going to be. This is going to be a show where the ball that does not lie to you. I guess we'll get more into that later. If you frequent this show, then you'll probably come to realize that I have some things that I know that, I'm going to use air quotes here, people don't, because again, I'm a ball. So in these things that I know, a lot of them are predictions. And if you like money, then you can go to Patreon, and I recommend subscribing to them. After this show, there's going to be a shameless plug that begins each show. It's going to sound like this. It'll say subscribe to my picks, because this ball does not lie. Unless you're emailing me, then this ball doesn't lie, because the person who puts me on this desk is not a typist.
There's a shameless plug that begins each show, and it sounds like this. You should subscribe to my picks. This ball does not lie. Unless you're emailing me, then this ball doesn't lie.
With that in mind, I have a day job. I am a ball, so I like to be efficient with my time. I don't sit here. I'm not going to sit here and just give you endless reactions to what's going on. So I want to keep things moving. With that in mind, let's bring out the shot clock and start recapping some of the things that have been going on in the NBA so far this season that I think are worth mentioning with my round and rubber perspective. Let's get 2 minutes on the clock and let's talk about something positive, people. Let's talk about the NBA's opening night. Opening night could not have come any sooner for the NBA. It was not a good offseason, I gotta say. When we're talking about, scandals, I really think that having the game being played on TV again and giving people something to talk about, other than bad news, is a great thing. With that being said, the Thunder won it all last year, and they're going to be a really exciting team that this ball is going to talk about quite a bit this year, I'm sure. And they're playing the Rockets, who obviously have a lot of promise. We expect them to be better. Having Durant is going to be a lot of fun. And they delivered on the first night of the season. I thought it was a great moment for the NBA, and if you're a fan of ball, I hope you were watching. In terms of what went on in the game, I think the torch has been passed a long time ago between KD and SGA, but that foul in the second overtime that sent Gilgeous-Alexander to the line to sink those free throws. That was just a reminder. The Thunder here, I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I don't know if I'm going to pick them to repeat this year because the league is really deep, and I think there's a lot of great talent in the league. But the Thunder, I expect to be there. When you have someone who scores at will, like SGA, the way that he does, you're going to have a shot. I think Mark Daigneault is a great coach. I think the Thunder are just a tough, mean team. And, it wouldn't be surprising if they're there in the end. The last thing I want to say about this game is that I'm glad the refs missed Kevin Durant calling that timeout, because we got to have more of it. I think that anyone who takes the opinion of, how did the refs miss this? First of all, criticizing the referees, no one's ever going to win. That is a lose-lose opinion. You're never going to get that on this show. Because there's cameras covering every square inch of the floor, we saw that, Durant's fingertips kind of touched, but I'm glad they missed it. I think that this was a great night, and I think the NBA needs to create more nights like this for their fans because it was a lot of fun. Now I want to talk about a team that I am really excited to watch this season, and that is the New York Knicks. Let's get 2 more minutes on the clock, and let's get that going right now. We knew the season was going to be about Brunson. I really hope it doesn't really become about Brunson. He's a great player, and I think that, Knicks fans, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that a lot of people are expecting Cat to be that number 2. He hasn't had a great start to the season. Give him time. He's a great player. Things like this happen. We forget that in a lot of the discourse that we have, not just in basketball and sports in general. It's a very critical culture. Give Cat some time. He's going to figure it out. He's a really good player. And if he doesn't, then we can have this discussion. But, less than however many games. There's a million games in the NBA every year, but we're at the beginning of the season. Having that discussion right now is way too early. I'm excited to see who's going to step up for the Knicks this year because someone needs to step up alongside Brunson. Now, that being said, during the offseason, Giannis expressed interest in coming to the Knicks. And when the Bucks and the Knicks played a few weeks ago, this ball got to catch that game. Now, like I said, this ball has a day job. I don't have time to be sitting around and watching all these games all the time because, I got to make that money. That's another reason why I'm here. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But I found myself thinking about how Giannis has talked about joining the Knicks during the game. Rather than watching the game, I find myself thinking about the offseason. I think a lot of people do this. I'm going to try not to do that on the show, though. That's why I brought it up, because I think that there's a lot of talent in the league, and speculating about who's going to go where just brings down the overall product, not just of the league, but, the discourse around the league. I was really disheartened last year about how much time a lot of people who cover the league spent talking about the Thunder winning it all. It felt to me like, not even a day. The day after, they're talking about Damian Lillard going back to the Blazers. And I like Dame Lillard. I'm not trying to say I don't like him, but is that more important than the Thunder winning it all? I don't think it is. And anyone who says that, I don't agree. I got two more topics, people. Let's get 1 minute on the clock, and I want to talk about the scandal that happened before the scandal in the NBA. That is the cap circumvention scandal. And like I said, only a minute. Let's get into it. Now, the worst part about this scandal is that it's taking away from talking about all the talent in the league like I was talking about a minute ago. When people talk about this being something that shakes the integrity of the league, I do not agree with that. I think that a lot of people who are fans of basketball regularly complain about how players aren't trying their hardest when they're out there on the floor. I think that hurts the NBA way more than a cap circumvention scandal. I think the analytics are hurting the game more than a cap circumvention scandal. I think that, 3-point shots are a lot of fun to take, but they're not a lot of fun to watch. It's not creating a good product. And I think that there's been a lot of complaints about baseball over the years for the amount of analytics they've embraced, and basketball's right there with them now. So, I just don't agree that this is something that's shaking the integrity of the league. I think one of the most surprising parts of this scandal is that they spent all this money on Kawhi Leonard, who doesn't even play. One more segment, folks. Let's get 1 second on the clock. Like I said, I like to give things the amount of time they deserve for the final story, and that is LeBron's fake retirement video. Let's get into it right now. I just don't care. All right, so that was Shot Clock. Let's transition to the next segment, the next reoccurring segment that's going to be on this show, and that is Hot Air. Okay, so let's let some of this hot air out like I was talking about. Let me just mention from the very beginning, I am not a lawyer. I have no insider information. I have no reason to believe that anyone accused is guilty or not guilty. I am finding everything out in real time, just like the rest of you. Let's talk about what the NBA needs to say and why they need to say it. Obviously, the association is going to come out and react to this with a lot of statements, a lot of press conferences about the NBA betting scandal, because they're not against it. Okay, the NBA is partnered with sportsbooks literally all over the place. It's hard to miss the logos of a lot of these companies, and that's because they want you to bet on games. Yeah, I'm talking to you. They want you to lose money. Ideally, they want you to develop a gambling addiction that will cause you to lose a lot of money. This creates a double standard. I mean, they want you to do it, but they don't want the players to do it. And leave it to the Talking Basketball to bring up the fact that this is not realistic. Whenever you have a situation where people have a lot of money, and I'm just going to say it, as a result, a lot of power, there's always going to be ways to make more of it that are legal and illegal. I think as far as there is a human nature, we have to consider that we're living in a world and in a society where we have to prioritize ourselves and act in our self-interest. I think that, potentially Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups might have thought they could have gotten away with this. Clearly they didn't. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trying to say they're guilty or not guilty. I'm just bringing up what's been reported. This story is an occupational hazard for the NBA, which they knew could have happened when they started partnering with these sports books. Let me make something very clear. If the NBA was against sports gambling, they would end all of their sponsorships right now, and they would stop allowing betting on their games. Let's be honest about something else. They're not going to do that. And that's why they need to have this response with the press conferences and the outrage, because the NBA knows that basketball fans who enjoy the sport don't like this. You know, sports are just another way to bring people to the table. Asking how the game was last night is just another way of saying hello. This is not something that's relatable. People use, x-raying tables to look at, cards and throwing games to make yourself more money while you have a, six-figure millions of dollar contract. That's not a good thing for the league. That is alienating to the average fan for good reason. This is the scandal that has the integrity of the league on the line, not the cap circumvention scandal. Like I said, the most surprising part of that is that they did all that for Kawhi Leonard. Steve Ballmer had been accused and found of violating NBA free agency rules in the past. It's not that surprising that someone who's done that before would try it again. Let me take this one step further. If the NBA were against sports gambling and the accused parties were found guilty, the NBA would find a way to fine these people and use it to lower ticket costs. And they would do that in the markets of the fans that were affected by players that have been throwing games. So with all this being said, the next time there's a betting scandal, I'm not predicting one, I'm just saying that we can't be surprised when it happens. It's happened a few times now. Let's save ourselves the shock and the outrage, and let's just skip to the part where we're disappointed, because that's what we're going to do on this show. All right, let's move on to our investor call. This is another recurring segment we're going to have on the show where this ball updates you on how well we've been doing with our predictions. This segment, in all honesty, it's about you, it's about me, but it's mostly about you, people. I'm a ball that knows things about ball, because I am one. I've already said this. The predictions that I've been sharing on Patreon, which are located in the description of this episode, which you can feel free to subscribe to, have been doing really well. Now, at the beginning of the year, I asked everyone to put 12 units, however you define a unit, into these predictions. And we're almost out of that 12-unit hole. We've almost made 8 units at this point back, so we're sitting like a little above, -3 units on the year, but we started at -12. That's how that works. I'm not cheating you guys, man. I want you to make back that investment that I told you to put in. We started giving picks on October 30th. We don't begin at the very beginning of the season because that's silly. I don't like losing money, and I don't like you losing money. When I'm talking about predictions, I'm always talking about the spread. I'm not talking about prop bets. I don't hate you. I don't want you to develop a gambling addiction. I'm talking about who's going to win by how much. Now, when it comes to those games and the spread, since this is the first episode, I'll let you guys in on a little bit of what to expect for the rest of the season. And some of this is not that surprising. You're going to have to keep watching to find out more. Some of the best investments so far this year in terms of the spread. The number one best investment has been the Washington Wizards. I think for a lot of obvious reasons. Like I said, I don't like to focus on negativity, but I don't necessarily think we've been expecting a lot from the Wizards this year. And I think going against them in the spread, picking them not to cover, is going to be a good investment for the rest of the season. Two more good investments, guys. They're the good teams. The Thunder are going to cover like crazy because they're really good. They're laying a lot of points every night. It's been double digits, but they're getting it done. It's not like they're not getting the job done. So I would continue to take the Thunder to cover as much as you can, along with going against the Wizards. You're going to have to watch to see which direction this ball wants you to bet with the Knicks, but for the most part, I think they're going to figure it out and be really good and cover quite a few of their games. Another team that has made us a lot of money so far this year, folks, has been the Boston Celtics. They've gotten some wins this year. I don't know what to expect from them long term, though, if I'm being honest. I think they're going to tank. I think that's the smart thing to do without Tatum this year, is get a good pick. If that's a thing, I don't keep track of things like this, like who has a pick or who doesn't. It's too confusing. I'm a fan of basketball. I don't want to get like a minor in business, to figure out all this stuff like the second apron and the third and the contract, exception. These are all things that I don't think necessarily have room in not just basketball fandom, but sports fandom. Okay, that's this ball's opinion. I don't care what teams are in the second apron. Or I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't. So if the Celtics are going to tank and try and improve their positioning to better their team somehow, I would imagine that's through the draft if they have picks, then I think that's a smart move. But, they're not one of these teams that are tanking because they have no talent. The Celtics have people who have been there before. I think that makes a difference. So I don't know how hard they're going to tank. You're just going to have to stay tuned and listen to the ball that doesn't lie, because I don't think it's going to be that easy. I don't think it's going to be as easy as just go against them every night, because they've won some games so far this year that they didn't have to. The final team I want to talk about in terms of good investments to start the year so far have been the Sixers. The Philadelphia 76ers have been really accurate so far in this ball's predictions in terms of, who's going to cover in their games. I don't really know what to make of this yet. I don't think a lot of people are expecting that much from Philly. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe people expect them to go really far. But it's too early to tell. So far, I think they've had a nice start to the year. But you're going to have to stay tuned on them too. I don't have any really long-term advice in this show other than things that you already knew. Go against the Wizards, go with the Thunder and the Knicks, because it's early. And like I said, this ball is not going to lie to you. So stay tuned, folks, and we'll give you some advice as we keep going along. But I guess cautiously, if you like the line, take the Sixers to cover. So far, they've been doing a good job at it. All right, so that does it for our inaugural episode of This Ball Does Not Lie. Like I said, subscribe to the picks on Patreon. Make sure you click subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. And if someone has pirated it somewhere else, then subscribe there too. So this is The Ball That Does Not Lie signing off. We'll see you next time, folks.